Welcome, everybody. You're at the Pollution Prevention Academy in 2026. Today, we're going to be covering the first of our four sessions going over industrial wastewater discharge permits. Next slide, Chris. All right. Like I just said a little bit earlier, some quick recap of some things. Chris Kuntz here and Alexa and Todd from Water Environment Services are in the background, helping sort out any questions or chats that you guys send out to help you with technological problems that you may run into, tracking our questions. We're going to answer questions at the end of the presentation, so you can hang on to them then, but just keep adding them into the Q&A. Before I get started, I want to introduce my co-presenters who are going to be speaking about industrial pretreatment permits today with me. First, I'll hand it off to Jim Conrad.
Hey, my name is Jim Conrad. I have worked for WES for going on 24 years. I am the Environmental Programs Coordinator, and I'm looking forward to sharing this presentation with you guys.
Thanks, Jim. And then I'll let Terrence Romaine introduce himself.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Terrence Romaine. I'm the Environmental Services Manager. I've been with the county for a little over 7 years, and I work on the pretreatment program with Jim and Chris. Thank you for being here today.
Thanks, Terrence. I am Chris Desiderati. I work with Terrence and Jim and been with WES for about a little over 10 years and work in pretreatment and stormwater compliance, which are some topics we'll cover during this series for everybody. Okay, I'm going to pass it back to Terrence to introduce a little bit, tell you all a little bit more about who WES is and where we operate and what we do. So go ahead and take it away, Terrence.
All right. Thank you for, like I said, for you all being here today. I just want to go over a little bit about WES and what we're our vision and mission. So our vision is to be a collaborative partner in the community. That is it is one of our core values. So we do serve over 7 cities and partnerships. So we know partnerships are critical with our mission. We provide wastewater services, stormwater management, and environmental education. That's why you're all here today, as well as it's our job to protect the health of our community, public health, our communities, and the natural environment and the economy. So, like I said, this is our mission and our vision. So thank you for being here, and we'll go to the next slide so we can talk about our areas. So we have 5 water resource recovery facilities that serve about 200,000 people in Clackamas County. We treat over 7 billion gallons of wastewater every year. We basically take what goes down your sinks and your toilets and from your industries, and we make clean water, we make electricity, and we make natural fertilizer called biosolids that's used on agriculture fields in Eastern Oregon. So that's why the paradigm shift of a wastewater treatment plant has the new term is the water resource recovery facility, because we do recover those resources and use them for beneficial uses. So, next slide. So this is, like I said before, a bit who we are. We serve over 100, almost 200,000 customers. We have those 5 facilities, but we also do have over 360 miles of sanitary sewer pipes that we maintain, and almost 11,000 catch basins for stormwater and protecting the watersheds for surface water in the Clackamas River, and our discharges go out to the Willamette. So all that is served by 23 pump stations throughout the service area as well. So next slide. So that's a little bit about who we are, our vision and mission, and the area that we serve. Chris is going to introduce you to some other members of the team, as well as go through the rest of the agenda. Like I said, thank you again for being here.
Great, thanks, Terrence. Yeah, let's go over the agenda, what we'll cover today. First off, I think it's really important you all know who you'll probably most likely interact with here at WES, who the employees are that implement this pretreatment program we'll talk a lot about today. And also some of the folks who are going to be talking for the other sessions in this series coming up every week from today for 3 more weeks. After that, I'm going to go get into what's the need for pretreatment, what purpose does it serve, what are its goals. After that, I want to talk about the fundamentals of a program, whether it's kind of core duties, whether it's core tasks that it does, and how we're kind of bolstered and grounded in our legal authority we are given by our Board of County Commissioners. And finally, I'm going to hand it back to Jim Conrad to go over what a permit is, and like kind of why, what the sections of the permits are, what you need to know about those different sections, and you know, what generally what they contain and what the permitting process is like, if you have any questions. Next slide, please. Hey, like I said, this is the environmental services team at WES. We are a division in the entire department. Our purpose is to provide monitoring, permitting, and pollution prevention services to WES staff, to industries. You guys are customers who are listening, in the community. And the purpose of that is so that all of you can appropriately access our infrastructure and use it responsibly to prevent any potential impacts on water quality in our service area. So quick rundown of these folks. Like you guys have already met Terrence, myself, and Jim. Next on our list are Rob Livingston and Galen Hoshofsky. They're going to be covering stormwater compliance in week 4. So stick around for that. They're going to talk about stormwater inspections on private property. You may have already met one of these two gentlemen in a stormwater compliance sort of inspection arena. After that, Matt, Zach, and I are going to discuss fats, oils, and grease and enforcement, how WES carries out enforcement, and how WES implements our fog control program, primarily with restaurants and food service establishments. That's going to be in week 3. And then week 2, next week on Thursday, Victoria and Hannah are going to discuss some sampling and compliance monitoring, kind of fundamentals. How do you sample your waste stream for your permit? What are some do's and don'ts? What are common violations with sampling, that kind of thing. And then, of course, last but not least, Justin Chen is another a gentleman who fills in and helps us do our sampling. He also is fundamental to our biosolids program. So with those introductions done, I want to talk about acronyms for a second by way of introducing words and folks. So in our business, acronyms are everywhere. We simplify a lot of the big scary words we use to try to convey information more efficiently, and we call them an alphabet soup. And there's a lot on here, but the one I'd point to the most, you're going to hear a lot in this presentation, is a POTW. And that a POTW is a public treatment works, so it's owned by citizens. In this case, the citizens of Clackamas County, our ratepayers, own this system. And it encompasses everything from the pipes and the pumps to our treatment plants. And that's the entire POTW. So when I refer to that, I'm referring to those assets that convey and treat wastewater. Next slide. All right, so what does pretreatment do? If you've never heard of pretreatment before, when I was just starting doing this, someone much wiser and older than me told me that pretreatment is some consider the most effective EPA program that nobody has ever heard of. It's really like kind of a silent program that happens oftentimes behind the scenes, helping protect water quality, protect treatment plants and workers. So I just want to run down some of the goals of what pretreatment does when it's operating effectively. The first one being preventing interference with POTW operations. So interference would be something that would impact how the treatment plant is operating. And it's a big bucket of things. It can cover something as complicated as like killing the biology in the treatment plants that is cleaning the water. It can be even more simple as like preventing some equipment at the wastewater plant from operating properly or corroding it too fast or something like that. Another goal is preventing pass-through, which is different than interference. So pass-through is the simplest way to understand that is that it's pollutants that come in from industry or commercial businesses that pass through the treatment plant untreated. and wind up in our receiving water, which for West is your Willamette River, or it ends up in our biosolids product, which Terrence introduced a bit earlier. Some other goals are protecting worker health and safety. So we have men and women that are out in those sanitary sewer pipes and in those pump stations, cleaning them and maintaining them. And our business is to protect exposure of those folks from dumps or toxic wastewater from different kinds of industries. And then a couple other goals are, like it says on the slide, improving recycling and reclaiming of municipal biosolids or biosolids themselves, allow us to reuse those resources, and then ensure compliance with regulations. We're required to have this program. Industrial users connected to the public sewer are required to follow certain rules. So our program helps us do that. All of that is kind of the final goal of it all really is to protect water quality in the Willamette River. So we do a lot of different things to keep the Willamette River clean. Next slide. So I want to talk about who needs a pretreatment program. Why is Wes talking to you about this effective EPA program no one has ever heard of before? Well, it's because we needed to have one. There are a few criteria that the state uses to decide if you are a public wastewater utility or a POTW, if you need a program or not. The first criteria is your size. And West definitely fits this bill. We do discharge more than 5 million gallons per day at our two largest treatment plants. The one shown in this image is our Tri-City plant, where at least Jim and I, I guess Jim, Terrence, and I usually report to and sit at. The second criteria is if a POTW is known to receive pollutants that pass through or interfere. Those are those terms I introduced last slide. So if there's a specific kind of industry in our collection system that discharges pollutants that could pass through or interfere with our treatment plant, we at West need to have a pretreatment program. Some of those pollutants are considered like toxic, like heavy metals or like solvents and that kind of thing. Then the last one is a kind of a broad category if the IU or industrial user is subject to pretreatment standards. So pretreatment standards apply to specific kinds of industrial users. I'll explain a little later in this presentation. And then before we move on, I'll say the final kind of hidden criteria I didn't put on here, but is true, is that if the Oregon Department of Environmental Quality decides that you're going to have a pretreatment program, you're going to have one. And the way they implement and require that is they add conditions to our NPDES permits we have with the state to develop and implement a formal program. So all told, there's 26 of these programs across the state of Oregon. Next slide. All right, I want to go and kind of give you guys some case studies, give you a quick break from hearing me jabber on about pretreatment and show you some cases where pretreatment programs weren't existing or they weren't effective at controlling incompatible pollutants from being delivered in the sewer. So this first one is from Kentucky. We're going to try and play this video for you guys right now. You'll just hang on a second. Bear with us. So we'll pull it up for you.
Well, I was driving through here and all of a sudden I saw a white flash, and then all of a sudden the road just buckled everywhere. Manhole covers were falling. It was wild.
Well, what am I going to do about my dog? I can't leave that. And there's not anyone want the dog.
Right, I don't know. Maybe these people can help you work something out. Maybe they can set it up so that you can come back in during the day and feed and water the dog and, you know, take care of the things that you have to take care of
You
during the
mean
day.
I just have to be out at nighttime?
Well, you really shouldn't be living in the house. If you have to visit it, they can help you work that out. But you shouldn't be living in the house.
I had a lot of work to do on this house and still ain't got it done. It's gonna take me quite a while yet. So it's been pretty bad.
Thanks, Chris, for helping get that video showing. Yeah, so that was an example of pretty severe discharge that came from the soybean processing plant. The pollutant of concern there in this case was a flammable solvent that obviously became a gas in the sewer, some ignition source somewhere, caused a spark and blew up 13 miles of sewer. Took two, like the video showed, it took 2 years to repair. And I think I like this video also because it shows like how wide-ranging those impacts can be, affecting just residents that happen to be living, you know, downstream of these industries. So trying to protect those things too. How about we go to the next case and I'll give a quick intro before we kick off the video. So the next case, we're gonna look at something a little more current, at least in this millennium, that happened out in Minnesota, where it was also another explosion that happened, affected a lot of other community connections, you know, a university campus, and took the utility a long time to trace down the origin and the cause of it. So when play the video, Chris, thanks.
Thanks for joining us tonight at 10. Our top story, a gas leak that forced evacuations at the U of M campus.
All of the buildings on the corridor from 19th and University to 10th and University were evacuated. Manhole covers were seen blowing off the streets in that area. Our Rose Schmidt is in Minneapolis tonight. So, Rose, it sounds like students are starting to return to their homes now.
Yeah, Amy, about an hour ago, we saw students walk back into their dorm after the university gave the all clear. Now, the good news is no one was hurt in this situation, but there is still that question of how gasoline ended up in the sewer system here.
Minneapolis firefighters tonight tell us they're trying to figure out the source of the gasoline in the sewer line on the University of Minnesota campus. The evening spent flushing the sewers, trying to mitigate the smell.
We've been able to smell gas in our house for like 2 days.
I could smell gas. It smelled like fresh paint. It smelled like fresh paint for a few days now.
There were mass evacuations on University Avenue after reports of a loud explosion in the sewer line. Several manhole covers were blown off in the process.
The sound was so loud. It was just a boom that took me off my feet. Put a crook in my neck. It scared me so much.
Honestly, I've never heard a sound like that. It's frightening. Didn't see any smoke or clouds or anything but the sound.
Firefighters were called to the Delta Tau Delta fraternity house just before 3 this afternoon, where they found smoke and flames in the basement.
A big explosion, and it shook our house and the room and people who were in their car.
Children at the YMCA and a nearby daycare were also evacuated. MTC buses were made available as temporary shelters.
Firefighters tell me there were reports of gas smells in St. Paul yesterday, and they're trying to figure out whether there's a connection there. Meanwhile, authorities will remain on the scene here for now, and part of University Avenue is still closed off. The university asks any student who smells a gas odor to give them a call at 612-624-COPS. We'll send it back to you.
All right, Rose, thank you. Well, a new set of laws.
All right. Thanks, Chris, for playing that video too. So that news story was released a few weeks before they were able to track down the actual source of this leak. And what they were able to determine was, in the image on the left, you see the petroleum service company that did a lot of contract work cleaning out tanks that held different flammable liquids, cleaned, like gasoline tanks, service them, return them to customers. Some of that servicing included cleaning them out and dumping the water and kind of flammable liquid mixture down the drain through a oil and water separator connected to the plant, this facility, excuse me. And the oil and water separator wasn't functioning anymore. It failed. And that had caused a lot of this liquid to get out into the public sewer. And just like the previous story, somewhere an ignition point ignited that gas in the sewers and caused explosions. A little less severe, but as we move on, I just like pose like, what if there were public workers, utility workers out there doing jobs in the sewer when this happened? It could have caused a lot more injuries to people. So let's go to our final video. And true to form, we're getting closer to current time, but now we've made the full trek across the U.S. and we're in Florida, where there was a nearly complete kill of a wastewater plant's biology that again treats the wastewater that comes in and produces the clean water that we put out into our rivers. So this video is about that event that completely obliterated facilities wastewater treatment ability. So yeah, let's see this video.
Happened out there, and it was bad. And it just shows the vulnerability of these biological treatment systems.
We are talking about a massive wastewater spill in Hillsborough County, enough to fill nearly 48 Olympic-sized pools. Officials say some of it ended up in a stormwater ditch, and they are now investigating the cause. It happened at the Falkenberg Road Advanced Water Treatment Plant that's located in Brandon. And investigator Brittany Muller has the story.
Hillsborough County says a few nights before Labor Day, someone dumped some kind of industrial cleaning agent into their system, which caused 32 million gallons of partially treated wastewater to leak.
This is video of the Falkenberg Road Advanced Water Treatment Plant in Brandon during regular operations.
Systems are biologically based. The treatment is biological. It's microorganisms that encompass all the treatment that we need at that facility.
George Cassidy, Assistant County Administrator of Public Utilities, says days before Labor Day, his team noticed an increase in the pH that was coming into the plant.
When the pH goes above 9, it causes an upset to the plant. Much in the same as if you had food poisoning.
Blinding the county's filtration system, which resulted in a 32 million gallon spill, and the system to go offline for 4 days. It's been reported to the State Department of Environmental Protections.
Somebody within our collection system put something down the drain that they shouldn't have, and it caused an upset to our facility.
This facility sees a daily flow of 12 million gallons. Cassidy says it would take a significant quantity of something to cause a major overflow like this.
We have a pretty significant stormwater capture system. It went into those stormwater ditches. We were able to trap some of it.
Cassidy says he's never seen anything like it, but smaller scale incidents have happened, including several years ago when a local school was cleaning their basketball court.
The cleaner that they were using to strip the old wax was inevitably washed down the drain and came to one of our plants, which caused a momentary upset to the plant.
Hillsborough County says the site is up and running without any issues, and they have since launched a team to investigate. They also expect a large fine from the DEP. I'm Brittany Muller, 8 on your side.
Thanks, Chris. That's our last video. I'll move on after saying this, that treatment plant was knocked offline for 4 full days, and starting up something of that scale requires something of like a all hands on deck kind of event. You need to bring in fresh wastewater from a functioning treatment plant somewhere else to kind of get the bugs going again. And so it's a pretty catastrophic event. But pre-treatment programs are around to kind of prevent those and protect the plants as best they can. from something like that happening. Next slide. All right, I want to dive into pretreatment fundamentals now with this concept of a pretreatment pentagon. It kind of covers the 5 key core duties that a pretreatment program does, how they implement the program. And underlying all of that as a foundation is our legal authority that we have, which I'll cover next. But before I do that, I want to talk about what we'll go over today, the permit part, which is at the peak here of the Pentagon, the top core duty. Jim and I are going to talk about that today. Next week, we're going to go over monitoring, the next corner of that Pentagon. Well, Victoria and Hannah talk a little bit about sampling and compliance reporting. Jim's also going to cover our survey element here too when we get into permits, what that entails. And then last, I'll talk about is the enforcement piece, which is how we return people who have caused a violation or violated their permit, how we get them back into compliance through corrective actions and technical assistance. We're not going to talk about inspections during this series, but we will have a survey at the end of this this series of sessions where we hope you guys can provide input. And if you guys want to hear about anything else, please fill out that survey and let us know what else we could share with you guys over this. Next slide. So like I said, kind of the foundation of our authority here in environmental services to implement this pretreatment program comes from state and local law that empowers boards of county commissioners, county governments, or cities to authorize their utility employees to implement a program like this. So here at WES, the Clackamas County Commissioners serve as our board of directors. So we're a special district in Oregon, WES is. So we have a board of directors, which are the commissioners. Commissioners also receive recommendations from a group of 20-member board of people that we call the WES Advisory Committee. That advisory committee sees a lot of different issues WES is working on. The committee consists of ratepayers, environmental representatives, business owners, members of the development community, elected officials like city mayors. In total, those 20 members liaise with the board through one of the county commissioners, Martha Schrader, who kind of talks back and forth between those groups. Those members bring experience from wastewater management, watershed health and education, economic development, and surface water. So all in summary, that committee that we work with and inform provide recommendations for the board of directors, kind of serve as a sounding board. So that's out of our legal authority. That's where we get the kind of the authority to do what we do. Next, I will get into the criteria that we use to determine whether your business might need a permit or not. Next slide. Okay, so we have quite a few criteria. The main basic ones are listed here on the left of your screen. Those things, if your business meets any of those listed, then you are going to need to apply and most likely receive a permit. The application gives us a lot of information and we base our decisions largely on that. So the first criteria up there, kind of talked about earlier, if your discharge requires pretreatment to meet standards, then you're gonna be required to have a permit. So pretreatment defined, if I've said that word probably 30 times already, but the pretreatment defined as a reduction in the amount of pollutants or the elimination of pollutants or the alteration of the nature of pollutant properties in wastewater prior to discharging or introducing such pollutants to the POTW. So that's what's happening at a business before that wastewater enters the sewer. It could be separating solids out, it could be neutralizing pH, removing heavy metals. There's all sorts of examples of pretreatment. We'll cover standards next. The next couple of criteria are pretty self-explanatory. We'll make note that these volume per day criteria are exclusive just to your process wastewater. So we do, when we look at how much discharged water you send to the sewer a day. We don't look at domestic wastewater from like toilets and sinks. We don't look at cooling water that doesn't touch any process. We don't look at boiler blowdown water. And then last, there's some criteria about requiring chlorine to treat at the plant or hazardous substances, then you're going to require a permit. On the right side, quickly, there are some more kind of stringent requirements or criteria that we use. And if you meet any of those on the right, then you get a special badge and become a significant industrial user, which is more serious than a regular industrial user. You have more requirements. There's you may have a potentially higher annual permit fee, but that's sort of the bucket that we will put you in. Reasonable potential is a term too. That's sort of our catch-all. So if you may not meet any of these criteria on the screen, but Wes still has a concern with your discharge and how it might affect the POTW, either the pipes, the pumps, or the plant, then we may require you to receive a permit. Next slide. Okay, I mentioned standards earlier. What are pretreatment standards? Well, there's kind of two basic types. Local limits here shown on the left. This is a full table of all of Wes's local limits expressed as daily maximums in concentration. That's how Wes issues local limits to our user base. Now, local limits are site-specific limits. So these limits are developed considering everything that's unique about Wes's system. From the industrial users that discharge to us, to how well the treatment plant takes pollutants out of the wastewater, to what our receiving water requires for water quality criteria. So it's all site specific. In contrast, the national standards you see on the right, a few examples shown there, their purpose is a little different. National standards apply no matter where you open your business up in the country, in whether it's a different state or discharging to a different water body. These national standards apply, and their purpose is to level the playing field for businesses. So everyone has at least a floor of standards they must meet. Those standards are pretty bare bones, but they do important things like prevent illegal dumping, and pretty much blanket prohibition on folks popping manholes and saying, we didn't know we couldn't do this. There's pH prohibitions in here. There's some stuff on the national standards list on protecting worker health and safety, preventing toxic gases from getting into sewers. And then there's the categorical industrial users that are covered under those standards, which we don't have time to get into today, but be happy to answer those questions later. Next slide. All right, my last slide for the day is sort of our categorization scheme. This is how Wes sort of divides up what I'm calling them special badges, but it's just like a category of industrial user. So to go through this diagram real kind of in a basic way, on the right are what we call non-industrial users. An example is like a residential home or like a multifamily apartment complex. So pretreatment programs do not have any role in controlling those facilities as discharge. We don't issue permits to those kinds of places. We're more concerned with commercial and industrial properties. So then you get into the left big bubble and all the little bubbles inside of that big bubble. Those are the folks that we care about and that we survey and inspect and when needed, issue permits to. So I'm not going to go bubble by bubble through there, but we do have a lot of different categories of industrial users. Jim's going to go through some details on this in the permit slide, where we tell you which kind of user you are. And I guess the takeaway on this would be to realize that most of those types of users on the left are going to require a permit or authorization of some kind if you fit that category and you fit a criteria that I explained earlier for requiring the permit. So I've been pretty general and broad, but now we're going to switch gears out of the what is pretreatment and criteria, and I'm going to hand this off to Jim Conrad, who's going to dive deep into what our West permits have in them, what all of the sections are, and just a general overview too of how our permits look. So yeah, please welcome Jim. Go ahead, Jim, take it away.
All right, thanks, Chris. So I'll be going over the permitting process first. So there are multiple steps in the permitting process. First is the non-residential questionnaire, or NRQ. So what is the NRQ? The NRQ is a brief questionnaire asking about the industrial facility. It asks basic questions like name and description of the industry, its location. Does the facility use water in the process? If so, how much? Any solids generated? Any hazardous waste? Just general questions to kind of get a base of what we're looking for. NRQs are usually distributed in three ways. The first way is through our business development department. When new or existing businesses apply for their license or building permits, they are given an NRQ to fill out in order for the process to move forward. The second way is through mail. Oregon DEQ requires West to conduct surveys of our district every few years. So we get a mailing list from our finance department, and we literally mail out hundreds of NRQs to our business communities. The third way is what we like to call window surveys. West staff drives out into our service area and physically looks for industries that have popped up or fallen through the cracks and unaware of. And we knock on doors, give our business cards, ask for a tour, hand out an NRQ. So the next step is the application process. After we receive the NRQ back, West staff goes over the answered questions, and based on certain criteria, we determine if an industry needs a follow-up site visit. And it's during these site visits that we hand the applicant or industrial user an application for permit. The application gathers more detailed information from the industry. It asks for building and plumbing schematics to include treatment systems, holding tanks, chemical storages, detailed flow breakdown, how much and where water is being utilized in the facility, and also may require lab samples of the wastewater to determine what's in it and what we would permit for. And just note, not all applications result in a permit issuance, but most of them will. So once West gets the application back, we begin permit development. We review the application to see if it's filled out correctly. We ask questions if there's any ambiguity in the answers or if there's information missing. We then draft the permit using all the gathered data from the application and any other correspondence that we have. We also perform a more detailed inspection of the facility to ensure that all details are captured and accurate for the permit. After the permit is completed, the permit goes out for review. We send a copy of the permit, the draft permit, to the industrial applicant. They are given a set amount of time to make comments or changes, or if they want changes. And we also send out a copy of the draft permit to our environmental services group for internal review, and they'll also get a certain amount of time to respond to that. When both the applicant and internal reviews and comments are back, edits to the permit will be administered and it will be sent off to legal for their review to make sure, and the legal reviews it to make sure everything where is in the permit is supposed to be, all I's are dotted and T's are crossed. Once back from legal, we then send it to our director for signature, and after that, the permit becomes effective according to the start date on the permit. Next slide, please. So timeline. There really is not a timeline for new industries getting a permit. If the industry wants to begin discharging wastewater by a certain date, West will do what it can to accommodate their desired date. However, the speed in which West can get this process done also depends heavily on how quickly the industrial applicant gets us all the data that West needs. And what I mean by that, we need a fully completed application with all schematics and processes laid out and explained accurately. West will also need to be given access to the facility to perform an initial inspection to verify that all schematics and everything's accurate. It's a little bit different for existing permitted industries. So West issues wastewater discharge permits that last 5 years. So 5 months before the existing permit is set to expire, West will send out a formal email or letter to the industrial contact. The email will notify them that their permit will be expiring and new application will need to be filled out so the permit process can begin. In the email, an application will be attached to the email along with the industry's previous application. The previous application will help cut down on time it takes to complete the application and move things smoothly. Once the application is returned to West, the next 4 months will be used to draft the permit, send it out for internal and external review, and send it to legal, and then finally get it signed by the director. Next slide, please. So what's the purpose of our permits? The purpose is to ensure compliance with applicable pretreatment standards that are set forth by the EPA and Oregon DEQ. Every industrial user that meets requirements must be controlled through a permit. Through the permit, as well as other legislation, WES is given authority to implement the permit and, if need be, enforce on the permit holder if they cannot meet permit conditions, which include permit violations. For me, though, the overall purpose of having an industrial wastewater permit is to protect public health, the health of our WES staff, our publicly owned treatment plant, and for the health of the environment. I mean, that really what it boils down to for me. Next slide, please. All right, so we're going to talk about permit fees and how we get those. Permit fees are calculated based on the criteria listed here. Points are given based on where the industry lands on the criteria. The points are then added up and determine the annual permit fee. So let's go over this slide here. The points go from 0 to 4, as shown in the far left column. Next column after that, average daily flow, is the next column. And as you can see, you get 4 points if discharge is 100,000 gallons per day or more. Then as the flow rates decrease, so do the points associated with the daily flow. Next column is extra strength. So what is extra strength? Extra strength is determined by the amount of solids and nutrients in the industry's wastewater. This primarily pertains to food processors, but not always. Some examples would be dairies, canneries, hatcheries, meat processors, potato chip makers, bottling companies, etc. Basically, any industry that discharges wastewater at a greater concentration of nutrients and or solids than regular household waste. So if you're an extra strength industry, you would get 2 points. If not, you'd get 1. So the next column is in SIU, which stands for Significant Industrial User, as Chris earlier mentioned. SIUs are determined by flow, the industry's potential to harm the treatment plant, and a couple of other things as well, as Chris mentioned earlier. If you are an SIU, you get 2 points. If not, you get 1. Next is the enforcement column. This column pertains to the industries that already have permits. As you can see, it's a sliding scale. The more enforcement actions you have during your 5-year permit term, the more points you will acquire. And then the column after that is the self-monitoring column. In the permit, based on the number of factors, the industry will be required to monitor for certain pollutants in their wastewater. The industry can be required to monitor semi-annually, quarterly, monthly, or multiple times a month. The higher the frequency, the more points they will receive. The next column is the WES monitoring frequency, which is very similar to the first one. WES is also required to go out and sample the industries. The more times we go out there, the more points you get added on to your permit fee. So after we go through this process, we add up all the points and the industry has accumulated, and it's based off the little sliding scale at the bottom. If you have 5 to 8 points, you get $1,500 annual permit fee. 9 to 13 is $2,250, and 14 to 17, you get $3,000 monthly fee or annual fee. Sorry. Next slide, please. So getting into the permit, section 1 is the basics. It has the name of the industry, billing and mailing. It lists the industry's responsible party, contact information, as well as an alternate contact person. It will show the annual permit fee, the permit effective date and expiration date, and it will be signed by a WES representative, which will be our directors. Next slide, please. Okay, section 2. Section 2 is discharge limitations. This section discusses discharge limitations as well as a few other things. This section identifies the industry's point of compliance, or POC. A POC is a designated point at the end of the industry's wastewater process before it goes into the sanitary sewer. This location is where all discharge parameters and analytical limits have to be met. This is also the place where the industry and WES staff will collect their monitoring samples. In this section, it will also show our local limits. As Chris mentioned, local limits are analytical limits that has been developed and approved by DEQ. These limits make the industry aware of the allowable concentrations they are allowed for a pollutants concern. Next slide, please. The actual permit section page has a much bigger list of prohibited discharges, but I will only cover a few here to save some time. I'll read those to you now. Any wastewater that causes or may cause hazard to human life, pollutants that result in presence of toxic gases, vapors, or fumes, any noxious or malodorous liquids or solids, petroleum, oil, non-biodegradable cutting oil or products of mineral oil origin. Next slide. Section 3 is the special conditions. Section 3 of the permit identifies additional requirements for the industrial user. Again, there's a whole page of this, so I'll read 2 off of it, and then so you can kind of gather what it's really all about. So number 1, if required by WES, all processed wastewater shall receive pre-treatment before discharge to the public sewer system in order to meet local and federal discharge standards. Number 2, the permittee shall establish and comply with written standards, operating instructions, and employee training to ensure proper and safe handling of all chemicals used on the premises and the proper operation of pollution control equipment. Such documentation shall be made available to WES upon request. All right. In this section, also, depending on what kind of industry is being permitted, you may find a requirement to have a toxic organic management plan, or you may see an industry is required to have a spill plan. Yeah, depending on what kind of industry you have, using paints or solvents, you may be required to do a toxic organic management plan. This section also provides notification instructions in case of a spill or a discharge that has potential to cause harm. It lists you treatment plant names and numbers to call and what to do after the spill is cleaned up. You have to notify us within 5 days of written report. At the end of the section, there's also a space that can add industry-specific best management practices. Next slide. All right, section 4, sampling and reporting. Section 4 of the permit goes over the sampling and reporting requirements. The section identifies sampling parameters, sample frequency, sample types for all required sampling. It also states that samples are to be collected from the point of compliance and that if any pollutant is monitored more frequently than required, the results of the additional monitoring must be submitted to WES. Next slide, please. Okay, so reporting. Monthly monitoring reports must be submitted by the last day of the following month being sampled. So if you sampled for February, the report would be due at the end of March 31st. Monitoring reports must have a signed WES discharge certification report form attached to the report, which will be provided to the industry. This form must be signed by an authorized signatory. An authorized signatory can be the owner/CEO, or it can be a designated person the owner chooses. If someone other than the owner or CEO is designated to sign the monitoring reports, WES will provide a signature authorization form to be filled out by the industry, giving that designated person the legal authority and ability to sign the report. Monitoring reports must include all lab results and their chain of custody forms. If applicable, a signed total toxic organic certification form must be submitted. In addition, the discharge flow readings and calculations of total monthly flow and daily flow averages shall be included. Next page, please. Section 5 is standard conditions. The purpose is to clearly identify the standard conditions of this permit. It covers records retention, WES's right to entry. It lists sampling requirements if violation occurs. It covers how confidential information will be handled. This section also states WES's authorities, abilities, and responsibilities as they pertain to the permit, including WES's ability to assess civil penalties for violations. Next slide. Now, permit alternatives. Permit alternatives, sometimes not all discharges need a full-blown 5-year permit. An example of that is, let's say, City of Happy Valley is putting in water lines and they have to pressure test the water lines before they can begin adding actual water to it. So when they fill it up, they add a pressure to it, see if there's any leaks. Now, where's that water going to go? They can't discharge it to creeks or streams or the surface water, so they have to put it into the sewer, and so they have to contact us. We send them a one-time batch authorization discharge application. They fill that out and ask pretty much the same questions as NRQ and parts of the regular application. We fill out the letter. They tell us, where they're going to discharge, how much. They have to meter the water in at a certain flow rate, so we don't surcharge and create backups in the sewer line. And they have to test the water to make sure that we can take it. And it's a one-time deal. And when they're done with that, they also give us a report of when, where, how, and why, and they will be billed on the volume of water they discharge. So with that, I think I will turn this back over to Chris, and he will finish the presentation out. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jim. Let's turn myself off mute. All right, folks. With that brings us to the end of our first session of the Pollution Prevention Academy. Thank you all very much for your time. I know it's very valuable in the work week, especially at this time of day. So thank you all for coming. The Zoom links should been sent to your email for this presentation and will be for the next couple sessions that you signed up for. So just take a look there. If you don't get those links in time, the next slide we're going to show is going to give you some contact information for who to reach out to. If you want more information on the next couple sessions, there's going to be a URL for our website, our West website that describes that. Drop in the chat here in a second. So you can just open that URL link and go learn more about the future sessions. I think you can also register there. But if that doesn't work, you can always contact either West Customer Service here on the right, or if you have more technical kind of questions about, hey, I think I might need a permit. Does this require a permit? Anything like that, please contact Jim or I. Our contact information is there on the left, and we can certainly help you folks out. So with that, I think we're gonna stop recording and